Hello guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. From this video I am going to discuss about the osteology of ulnar bone. From my previous video also I discussed about how you should start bone description. When a bone is given, first you should determine the side of the bone. That means whether the bone is belongs to right side of the body or whether the bone is belongs to left side of the body. So let's see what is the side of this bone. In the upper end of the ulnar bone, it is a hook-like structure. The concavity of this hook-like structure is directed forwards. So here you can see there is a hook-like structure and the concavity directed forward. So this is the upper end. In the lower end, in this end, there is a styloid process. I'll show you. Here there is a styloid process in the lower end. There is a projection, small projection, that is a styloid process. This styloid process lies posteromedially. This styloid process lies posteromedially to the rounded head of the ulna. Here you can see the rounded head. There is a rounded head in the lower end of the ulna, and the styloid process is located posteromedial aspect to the rounded head of the ulna in its lower end. Okay, now you know what is the upper end of the ulna and the lower end of the ulna. Let's see what is the lateral aspect and what is the medial aspect. In the ulna, the lateral border of the shaft is a sharp and crest-like. We'll see what is the lateral border. This is look like very sharp. Let's see if there is another border. No. So you can see this border is sharp and crest-like. So this is the lateral border. So this is lateral aspect and this is medial aspect. Therefore, this bone belongs to the right side of the body. Right side of the body. This is how these bones articulate. This is the humerus, this is the ulna, and this is the radius. Usually radius is in the lateral side and ulna is in the medial side. This is the humerus. So this is the bone articulation in the right side of the body, right side of the upper limb. Let's see what are the features of the ulnar bone. So first I will discuss about the upper end. In the upper end there are two processes. You can see in the posterior aspect there is a process which projects upward and it is called as olecranon process. It is called as olecranon process. And also there is a process which projects forward and it is called as coronoid process. And also there is a notch in the ulnar bone for the articulation of the radius, that is called as radial notch. This notch, you can see it is like a small depression. It is called as radial notch. In this olecranon process, there are about 5 surfaces. Those are, there is a superior surface, there is an anterior surface, then there is a posterior surface, posterior to this, and then there is a medial surface and lateral surface. So there are 5 surfaces. And you can see this anterior surface of the olecranon process is articular. That means this olecranon process articulates with olecranon fossa of the humerus and the trochlea of the humerus. Here in this view you can see the articulation of the humerus, ulna and the radius. Here you can see how the radius is articulate with the ulnar bone at the radial notch. Then you can see the olecranon process and the coronoid process. Here is the trochlea, and you can see how it articulates with these surfaces, and you can see how olecranon process accommodates in the olecranon fossa of the humerus. Here you can see the posterior surface of the olecranon process. You can see it is a triangular area. You can see the triangular area here, and this triangular area forms the subcutaneous area. In the coronoid process also, there are 4 surfaces. Here is the superior surface. Here is the medial surface. Here is the lateral surface. And here is the anterior surface. Here in the lower part of the anterior surface, this is anterior surface. In the lower aspect, you can see rough area. You can see rough area in the anterior surface of the coronoid process, and it is called as ulnar tuberosity. Ulnar tuberosity. In the lateral surface, you have the radial notch. I previously showed you the radial notch. Those are the features you can see in the upper end of the ulna. Now we will discuss about the features in the shaft. In the shaft, there is an interosseous or the lateral border. There is anterior border and posterior border. Here is the lateral border, or we call it as interosseous border. Then you can see the rounded anterior border. This is anterior border. Here you can see there is a sharp posterior border. Here you can see sharp posterior border. The lateral border is sharpest in its middle 2/4. That means in this area, the lateral border is the sharpest. This lateral border continues superiorly with the supinator crest. This area is the supinator crest or the supinator crest. You can see this anterior border is rounded and thick border, and the posterior border is subcutaneous. Here you can see the posterior border here. This is the posterior border. This is the posterior border and it is subcutaneous. If we draw a cross section of this ulnar bone, here posterior, here anterior. This is like this. This is the cross section of ulna. This is lateral border. This is posterior border and this is anterior border. So you can see there are 3 surfaces as well. Those are the medial surface. This is the medial surface. This is anterior surface. And this is the posterior surface. In between posterior border and anterior border, you have the medial surface. In between anterior border and the lateral border, in between anterior border and the lateral border, you have the anterior surface. and the posterior surface is in between the lateral border and the posterior border. When we talk about the features in the lower end has made up of a rounded head and a small projection which is called as styloid process. Here you can see a well demarcated groove in between this styloid process and rounded head of the ulna, and this groove accommodates the tendon of the extensor carpi ulnaris muscle. Let's see what are the ossification centers in the ulnar bone. There are two ossification centers, two types as primary and secondary. The shaft of the ulnar bone and most of the upper part of the ulnar bone ossifies from the primary ossification center, and the superior part of the olecranon process and the lower end of the ulnar bone ossifies from the secondary ossification centers. Ossification centers are the areas where bone formation begins. So you have to know what are the ossification centers as well. Here you can see the ulna and radius. Here is the radius and here is the ulna, and here you can see the interosseous membrane. This is interosseous membrane. It is a fibrous structure and it forms the connection between the radius and the ulnar bone. Here also you can see a transverse section of both ulna and radius. Let's see the muscle attachments of ulnar bone. First we will see the anterior aspect from this diagram, and you can see the insertions from blue color and in red color the origins of the muscles. Here first we will see the origins. Here you can see flexor digitorum superficialis origin in the ulna, and you can see the pronator teres ulna head. Here I'll show in my previous video the humeral head of the pronator teres starts from the humerus, and you can see the ulnar head of the pronator teres starts from the ulnar bone. Then you can see the origin of flexor digitorum profundus muscle. Then you can see the origin of the pronator quadratus muscle. Then you can see the insertion of brachialis muscle to the ulnar tuberosity, that roughened area. Here you can see the supinator deep head of the supinator muscle. It origins from the supinator crest of the ulna. I told you also the lateral border of the ulna continues as supinator crest superiorly. So this is the supinator crest and the muscle origin from the supinator crest. You can see the muscle attachments in the posterior aspect of the ulna here. These are the muscle insertions. Here, triceps brachii muscle insertion to the superior part of the olecranon process, and to the lateral aspect of the olecranon process, the unconeus muscle is inserted. Here you can see the origin of flexor carpi ulnaris muscle here. Then you can see the origin of extensor carpi ulnaris muscle. And you can see the origin of here flexor digitorum profundus. Here also you can see little bit in the posterior aspect flexor digitorum profundus muscle origin. Then here from the lateral aspect abductor pollicis longus muscle, and then extensor pollicis longus muscle, and then extensor indicis muscle origin. So those are the muscle attachments to the ulnar bone. That's all about the ulnar bone. Hope you guys understood clearly how the description of how you should describe the features of the ulnar bone. And thank you for watching. If you like this video, put a like and a comment in the comment section.